Here we are working on the Titan again. I'm putting in a new AC condenser. This one's got a leak. The leak is right about here. It was wet, but there's corrosion here. Looks like it might have been hit by some rocks. So this doesn't look like that fun of a job, but with the lifted front end it shouldn't be too bad. So we're going to start by taking out these two radiator bolts. They're 8mm. Stick them up there. This intake tube has to come off, so disconnect your wiring harness and your holder there, and flathead screwdriver here. You want to take these two fan shroud bolts out. And you're going to need to lower your coolant level in your rad, so you can drain that out a bit to drop it, because we're going to have to take these two hoses off to lift the condenser out here. So next we have to work on the fan bolts, and then we're going to have to pull this fan shroud off. But let me show you the drain. So this is the drain right here. A 3/4 socket fits on that nicely, and there's a little spout you can attach a hose to run the hose right into your container. This is the AC condenser. Comes sealed. Comes with a new dryer. Whenever you're taking apart part of your AC system, you're supposed to replace the dryer. This one's part of the condenser. And I've also got some PAG 46. The Titan service manual has a chart which gives recommended oil amounts to add to the system when you've got it apart. For this particular job, replacing the condenser, it recommends 75 milliliters, so I'm going to add that in. So with the 4 fan bolts or fan bolt nuts removed, and the 2 top shroud bolts removed, you can, and you also have to remove this hose from the cap. You can push this forward and you can pull the fan up through here, and then if you go underneath, there's some fan shroud clips right here. So 1, 2, 3. If you can just push up on them, and you can pull the fan shroud out, and then you can. I've got one more hose to remove. I can pull the fan shroud out. So I'm gonna have to pull this top rad hose off, and then I'm going to lift the fan shroud out the top. So to pull the fan shroud out, you got to pull a couple hoses out of the clips through here, and then one at the bottom as well. So that's these two, and this one. We have to disconnect the AC lines, high pressure side and low pressure side. One here, and the other is right here. And I recommend holding them with a pair of pliers. This is kind of how I did it, and used a socket wrench. You don't want to twist and bend these. So I forgot to mention that if you have Freon in your system, you should take it to AC place and have them remove the refrigerant before you start this. It's a good idea to wear gloves and safety glasses as well when you're undoing your connections and opening up the system. Mine has a hole in it, so it's pretty much empty. I did have a little bit of pressure in the high side when I took the connections off, so beware of that. There's also this sensor here, which you're going to have to remove and put in your new unit. That's right there. You just take a wrench and crack it. And screw that out. So I should be wearing a glove for this. But anyways, just screw that out. I did have a little bit of, looks like dye and oil seeping out of there when I loosened it the first time. So I'm gonna take that out and leave it out and reinstall it after I get the AC condenser in, because it sticks out. It's gonna be in the way to remove this one and put the new one in. So I'm just gonna leave it out for now. So the next step is to remove the brackets that hold the condenser to the radiator, and you can access them through here if you can reach them. An 8mm ratcheting wrench would be ideal, but I don't have one that small. You can also, now that we've got everything freed up, tilt the radiator back and access them here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So with the two 8mm bolts off, you can pull the brackets off the top, and then it looks like we're free to lift this up. Look at my radiator. Looks like it's starting to corrode, and that's not good. So hopefully it lasts a bit longer without leaking. I think this wetness is from when I took the cap off. A bit came out. Hopefully it's not leaking. I was thinking about buying a new radiator, but it's not really in the budget right now. It might be, hoping not till next year, but this would have been a good time to change it while I've got this all apart. But I guess this is a good practice for when I go to do that. You can see in here, this says it's a Vistian made in USA, but down there AC condenser says Vistian made in Mexico. So, I'm looking at the CSF aluminum radiator, and if I get that, I'll do a video on that. So I've got the condenser out. It wasn't too bad to get out. Just take your time. Takes a bit of wiggling. Don't force anything. Just lift it out slowly and have a look at where it's catching and move it accordingly, or move something out of the way. So this is what the rad looks like, and this is a good time to clean the front of the rad. I'm going to take a vacuum and get all that crap cleaned up. The rad doesn't look too bad though. Cooler looks okay too. And you can see here, that's what AC condenser sits on. So these connections here, you kind of got to move them out of the way. This is the other AC one here. I've got rags stuffed in them to keep them clean, keep the moisture from coming in. And yeah, the rad just pushes back, and the condenser will come right out the top. So one other thing about the new condenser is it comes sealed, and you want to leave those seals on until you're ready to hook it up. And it's got the plug in here as well, and that's to keep moisture out. You don't want air getting in, bringing moisture with. Okay, so I knew this radiator was sealed, but it was also pressurized. So when I took the cap off, air came out. So that's good. I know it doesn't have any leaks since it was still pressurized when I opened it up. I'll keep moisture out, so I don't want to keep this open for very long. What I'm going to do is add my PAG oil into the low pressure side, and I've got 75 milliliters measured out here. Some people like to add it into one of the hoses when the system is running, but I've seen a lot of people just add it right into the AC condenser. Yeah, so I've got the new condenser wiggled in. I'm sitting on these mounts at the bottom, and I've got the PAG oil in there. And next, to replace the brackets, so now I've got the low pressure side hooked up to the AC condenser. I've got the 2 radiator bolts back in. I've put the sensor back in and connected it up, and also connected the high pressure side. Now this is where I had problems because it did not line up. It wasn't close, so that looked like an issue with my condenser. I had to very gradually bend it. I bent the condenser line because that's the one that was off. So I'm hoping that there's no leaks. I'm going to hook up my gauges now and check it before I put the rest of the truck back together. And I also had a bit of trouble getting the connector in after I did have it lined up, so hopefully that goes well. Okay, next thing I've done is I've tested for leaks using a vacuum pump, and then I drew a vacuum on the condenser for 45 minutes to get all the moisture out. I'm not going to go through that whole procedure of recharging it because I'm not an expert on that. I'd say do some research or get a qualified shop to do that. I have my fan back in. So my tip for getting these bolts out is to use a flathead screwdriver like this to hold it while you're undoing them. I was able to tighten them without holding it. It didn't turn when I was tightening, but it would turn when I was breaking them loose. So next is I'm going to do the fan shroud. And the shroud actually separates into 2 pieces, so you can do the top and bottom separately. After the fan, that's going to put in. Again, don't force anything. Wiggle it and check to see where you're caught up. You don't want to break it and start all over again. Okay, so I'm just going to set this in, and I'm going to do the bottom first. So I've got the fan shroud back in place. There's 2 spots where the bottom meets the top. Right here, there's kind of a prong there, and right up here as well. So the top piece has tabs that come down into the radiator, and then the bottom piece has tabs that go into the top piece, so right here, here, and here. So make sure they're all snapped together. And then you want to put your hose back in here and here. We'll go to the top, and I'll show you the hoses up there that need to go together. So under here, got little hose clamps there and right there. And do up your 2 bolts. reconnect your overflow hose and your top rad hose, and we're done. And I've got 2 bolts left, so we gotta figure out where these came from. But actually, don't worry about those because the new condenser came with 2 new bolts, so I reused those. I used the new bolts. Now to get going, we're gonna have to put our intake back on. I'm gonna do that. I'm not gonna show that. That's pretty easy. And then we're gonna top up our coolant, and then we can start our engine, and then we can do the AC recharge. So the condenser replacement is complete. I'm not going to do a video of the AC recharge because this was my first time doing it. You can find other videos on other cars which are very similar. So I've gone through and checked for leaks, tested everything out, everything's working well. Now, time to go for a ride. I'm going to enjoy some cold air.